Today we are honored to host Charles Miano, one of our distinguished investment analysts. And Charles focuses on North African markets as an investment universe, and we want to know more on the opportunities that that particular market presents to us. My name is Pius Mushira Mugo, the Managing Director of Nabo Capital, and you're watching Invest in Africa. Charles, welcome.
Thank you
to the show.
Yeah, look forward to it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So let's get right into it.
Sure.
What's your very quick view of North African market and particularly Egypt?
I think North Africa is quite promising, especially Egypt. This big story about Egypt is it's coming from the Arab Spring back in 2011 when they had the huge political divide. At that time, GDP grew by 1.8%, but now we're seeing a recovery in Egypt, strongly quite, I might say. As at 2017, the GDP grew by about 4.2%. And the key thing about Egypt is now you have a flexible currency as opposed to a managed currency that was prevailing previously. And in addition to that, we're seeing growth pick up. We're seeing growth expected by the IMF for 2018 and 2019 at 5.2 and 5.5% respectively. So that's quite positive for investors who are looking to go into that market, because you have a stable currency and also you have systems in place with the IMF coming in, aiding the country to be an attractive destination. So overall, Egypt as a country looks quite promising, both on the equity side as well as the fixed income side.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's talk about politics.
Yeah.
You touched on Arab Spring.
Yeah.
How is the political climate in Egypt? Is it conducive for investors?
Yes, it's quite conducive at the moment. What we've seen is a drastic change when after 2011, after the ousting of the former president Mubarak, they came in the Muslim Brotherhood, but there was a lot of discontentment with that particular political party. And then from 2014, we saw the election of Al-Fatah, who's the current president, or Al-Sisi. And so seeing Sisi coming in since 2014 all the way to being the current president in his second term, where he was overwhelmingly voted in by a 97% majority, then it shows that there is some stability in the country, and that's what was needed, because the focus for Egypt has always been the fact that it's very strong on the economic side. So if they can stabilize their political environment, then that creates a venue through which investors can come in. So politically, I believe the country is sound, and we haven't seen any tension since 2014 that has drastically affected that nation. Okay. Yeah.
So you mentioned that it's attractive on both fronts, equities and fixed income.
Yes.
Just shed some more light on that.
Okay. So touching on the fixed income side, when they floated their currency, this was back in November 2016 after the recommendation by the IMF, we saw yields pick up quite drastically. This was as a follow-up because of the inflation. Inflation ticked up significantly to 30% levels. This was the highest it had been historically in Egypt. And following that, investors required a higher return in order to invest in that particular country. So we saw yields pick up to levels of 20%, and these are yields of not longer term papers, but short term papers within 1 year. And so currently what we're seeing is the T-bills at the moment are yielding about 19 to 20% levels. This is all the way from the 91-day paper to the 364 paper, and this is quite attractive. If we compare this to let's say to Kenya, for example, you're seeing Kenya the 364 T-bill at about 9.5% and the Egyptian T-bill at 19%. And if you take currency, so far the Egyptian currency against the dollar has only lost about 0.3% or so. The Kenya shilling against the dollar has lost about 0.5% year to date.
Yeah.
So you're seeing it quite attractive in the fact that if you go in as a dollar investor or a currency that you're coming from a country that is outside of Egypt, you're still making a relatively high return, and also you're protected on the currency side, which makes it quite attractive. On the equity side, I think the returns have been quite good. Looking at the performance since 2012 all the way to 2017, it returned a total return of 390% in investing with dividends, of course. And looking at it from an annual return perspective, that was about 30.3%. As at last year, the return for the market on the equity side was about 25 or so percent. So it's quite picked up and it's done quite well. However, due to the emerging market sell-off, we're seeing the Egyptian market has taken quite a hit. So it's down about year to date about 15%.
Okay.
But this opens up opportunities, and I think the most prime opportunities are within the banking sector as well as the consumer sector.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just very quickly, I know investors are wondering, how easy is it to go in and go out in terms of repatriation of funds? Just very quickly touch on that. I know we are running out of time.
Yes. So since the devaluation back in November, so the reserves are increased significantly. As at right now, Egypt has a record level of $44.5 billion in reserves. This is about 9 months import cover, and typically most African nations have about less than 5 months import cover, and Kenya about 5.2, 5.3 months import cover. So this gives you a range of seeing how strong the dollar is. So if you're an investor and you're coming in with your dollars, you can get your currency in and out quite easily, and there is no stumbling block at the moment to prevent you from investing in that country. So in terms of currency, you're protected in terms, especially on liquidity side, and also in terms of just the strength of the currency, which we've seen since the devaluation, the currency has actually gained against the dollar by about 1.15%. So very, from my point of view, I see that as a positive. Yeah.
So there it goes. It's a very interesting market to invest in. Egypt, that is. And if you want to know more, please feel free to engage us on our various social media platforms that are displayed on the screen, or you can come to our offices at International House. We'll be more than happy to discuss Egypt further with you. My name is Pius Mushiri Mugo, the Managing Director of Nabo Capital, and you're watching Invest in Africa. Thank you.